I want to talk a little bit about space now in chess and about why it's important. Now, extra space on the chessboard means extra room to move for your pieces. In general, space is a long range advantage in chess. So if you've got more space, the best thing I can say to you is that you shouldn't hurry to demonstrate this advantage. You should take your time and gradually increase your advantage, slowly squeezing the opponent to death and make his life intolerable. To maintain this space advantage, you should try to avoid exchanging pieces. The idea is that all the enemy pieces trip over each other's toes in the limited amount of room available to them. And as you're gradually squeezing, gradually increasing your advantage in space, the enemy becomes more and more cramped. At that stage, you have more choices of plans and therefore more ways to increase your advantage. Once you get this advantage in space, try to cut down on enemy counterplay. To defend your borders, don't let the enemy break free, and slowly but surely take more control of the board for yourself. So just to summarise, when you've got more space, don't rush, play to gradually increase your command of space and avoid trading pieces. This will make your life easy and the enemy's life very difficult. Now, of course, if you're defending with less space, then you're going to have to look at your position very carefully. Obviously, you should be trying to exchange pieces wherever possible to make your life easy. You know, obviously, the fewer pieces, the fewer obligations you will have within the limited amount of room available to you. And as usual, when you're defending, you should always look out for counterplay. Well, perhaps now it's time to take a look at some games and try to illustrate what I mean. And the first game I'm going to look at is an excellent example of how to use more space. And playing white in this game is Dmitry Svetushkin. Playing black is Marco Tratar. The white player is graded 2615 and the black player 2488. So both of these players are experienced internationals. And this game was played in April 2009 in the Kutro Open. The opening is a Czech Benoni. Not everybody's cup of tea. I happen to think it's a good opening for black, but it does lead to block positions, where manoeuvring is the order of the day, and right from the outset, black is giving white more space, conferred on him by the pawn at d5. Black is hoping to negate this advantage in space with appropriate pawn breaks. Black is looking to open up the position with either f5 or b5 at the right moment. But of course, with black in a position like this, where you're slightly down on space, you've got to be very patient. And black just can't play those moves as he feels like it. He's got to be extremely patient in the way he unravels his position. Meanwhile, in this game, white has chosen a very reliable way to meet the Czech Benoni. It's an economical system of development. White, for his part, is thinking about the pawn levers f4 and b4, and obviously putting the knight on e2 assists in the preparation of f4, should white ever desire to play this move. Well, okay, slow manoeuvring is the order of the day. Black decides to play a6, with perhaps the idea of playing b5 a bit later on. White clamps down on that possibility with a4. And in its own way, a4 is a space-gaining move. Black is restricted from playing any sort of pawn break on the queen side, and now he's got to be thinking about, well, what about f5? How do I get this move in? Well, this is a particularly interesting game because after b6, white goes straight through with f4. This is an unusually blunt way to play the white position, but white's intending to stop f5 for good because after knight e8, Svetushkin goes straight through with f5. Now, normally speaking, because block positions are all about good and bad pieces, normally speaking, this move wouldn't be considered very good because of bishop g5. The idea is, by playing bishop g5, black is getting rid of what we call his bad bishop. The bad bishop is the bishop trapped in behind the central pawns. So really, you could say that the bishop on g2 is white's bad bishop. Of course, Svetushkin knows this. What he's arguing is that yes, he's allowing black to exchange off the dark square bishop, but he's going to have such a nasty cramp on the black game after h4 that he's willing to allow this exchange. He thinks black can't really do anything now, and he's got to sit and watch as white advances methodically those kingside pawns. Now white has a tremendous space advantage. Yes, black has gotten rid of his bad bishop, but can he exchange off any more pieces? Well, perhaps no, he can't. And so Svetushkin now is thinking about a patient build-up and gradually increasing this advantage. The overall aim is to launch a kingside attack, starting with g5. Alright, this requires preparation. Well, for the time being, Tratar settles down quite correctly and starts to play very patiently. White manoeuvres his pieces into good positions, getting ready for the g5 break. Black can do nothing, he waits. White plays b3. Black plays knight c7. Could there be suddenly the idea of b5? White seems to have everything prepared for b5. And now he plays the very instructive move here, a5. Note that white does not take on b5 because that opens up the game on the queen side where black is playing. Black would love the queen side opened up, then he would have some room to manoeuvre for his pieces. Instead, white blocks the position. He's very patient. Black plays rook b8, getting ready to open the b file, but white continues with this extremely patient build-up, taking away squares from black's pieces and gradually preparing g5, which of course rook g1 does. At some point, black knows g5 is going to come. He's just got to ready himself for the eventuality and be clear in his mind that he hasn't really got anything active to do. Not sure about b4 though. The problem with b4 is it gives white a free hand on the king side. However, I'm not sure whether I see any active moves for black in this position. Possibly queen b8 with the idea of perhaps taking on c4 and using the b file. The problem with black's b file counterplay is every entry point on the b file is covered by white minor pieces. So even if black played queen b8, it wouldn't be at all clear where he was going from there. Okay, b4, I don't know. To me that's not correct. But and Tratar suffers as a result of that move. But I don't know what black was thinking. Possibly he was becoming frustrated with his lack of prospects. At any rate, white now finds it very easy to manoeuvre his pieces across to the king side in readiness for g5. Okay, black is condemned to passivity. He's condemned himself to passivity with the move b4. White continues to manoeuvre very patiently, and now another slightly impatient move by black, g6. If black takes a look at this game afterwards, I'm sure he will see that both b4 and g6 were moves which really cost him the game. I don't think black should touch the king side at all. I think he's just got to wait and hope for the best. It's not very pleasant, but perhaps that's what black should have done, because after g6, all that black does is encourage the white queen to a very dominating position on h6, and black can't get rid of it. And I don't know, this space advantage on the king side is really unpleasant for black. Anyway, Tratar hoped to defend himself with rook g7. White played knight e3. Black played king h8, and now an excellent move by white, rook a2. The rook's not going to stay on a2 very long, as the game shows. What white's intending to do is to swing that rook across to the king side to perhaps g2 or h2 to aid in the final attack. g5. White is upping the ante. The move g6 doesn't adorn the black position here, it just makes white's life much easier, leaving open the black king. Queen comes to e7, possibly offering the exchange of queens after rook a g2, queen g7, but white is not at all concerned by that, given his advantage in space, and continues manoeuvring with knight f2. Possibly now a knight coming to g4 is an idea which is going to trouble black further. Black takes on g5, and now queen takes g5, refraining from the exchange of queens. Queen comes to e7, and now knight fg4. Off come the queens, which you would think would help black, but now white moves in with excellent move, knight h6. And this is really problematic for black, because if he plays his rook up to g7, white is going to simply take back on f5 with the pawn, and black is completely strangled here, and black has no moves whatsoever. White's idea is bishop h5 and then f6 winning material, and there's not a lot black can do about it. So after knight h6, I think we can safely say that black is lost. he tried f4, but then white simply hoovered the rook off. Thank you very much. The other knight came into f5. If black had counterplay in this position, you see, he could argue that, you know, with the rooks blocked off, the knights might be better than the rooks. But with no counterplay to speak of, again, white has easy targets in black's camp. Knight gh6. All that white does is simply switch fronts with his rook. And, well, black resigned this position because he's got nothing to do. Why does he resign? Well, I think simply white's going to move this knight away from h6 and then take that pawn on h7, and there's not a single thing black can do about it. So that was a very good game by white, very patient in all its phases. White basically strangled black. You know, black had no counterplay whatsoever. White displayed patience throughout and marshalled his forces for the attack very well. In the end, black had no counterplay and he ran out of moves. So a terrific performance by white, and an ideal way to highlight how to use an advantage in space.